NHL as we delve into the elite upside and impressive depth of the San Jose Sharks pool.
You are Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On this show, we break down everything prospects related for you 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. I'm your host, Sebastian High, the USA scout over at Elite Prospects. And on today's show, we're continuing our series of breaking down the league's top prospect pools. We've already covered the Boston Bruins, the Montreal Canadiens, and today we're going with the number one team in our Elite Prospects pool rankings, and that is the San Jose Sharks. So we'll be talking about big names like Michael Misa, a goaltender with elite upside, and Yaroslav Askarov, as well as some impressive depth players down the depth chart, such as Joey Muldowney out of the NCAA, who had an absolutely fiery back half of the season with his goal scoring. There's a lot to look forward to on today's show, so especially if you are a Sharks fan, make yourselves comfortable, lean back, and we'll dive right into it. But first, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app right now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So the San Jose Sharks, a team that has already been an established top prospect pool for quite some time now through the rebuild led by Mike Grier, and they've just done a fantastic job at both hoarding top-end talent, but also having some really, really intelligent swings in the second, third, and fourth rounds of the draft to really fill out the depth of this pool. But we're going to start off from the top, working our way down from number 1 all the way down to number 23 in our rankings, kicking it off with the most recent first-round selection by the San Jose Sharks, and that's Michael Misa, a player that I just loved watching all year long. He was entirely in contention for me personally for the number 1 slot with Matthew Schaefer. It was between the two for the back like 4 or 5 months before going into the draft. But with Misa, what you get is basically a 2.0 version of Macklin Celebrini. The long-term outlook in San Jose with those two players down the center chart is extremely exciting. Certainly along the lines of like, not going to give an entire Pittsburgh Penguins comparison here because Sidney Crosby is a truly generational talent, but kind of that vibe of depth in terms of elite top 2 centermen, just like Gino and Sid in Pittsburgh. With Misa, you have a similar level of high-end skating ability, just like you do with Macklin. And I think with him, it's really a lot of the maturity that really stands out in his game. He's incredibly intelligent. He's able to break down defenses like few U20 players are able to at the CHL level. And he brings a whopper of a shot, extremely refined playmaking ability, handling that can keep up with the rest of his toolkit, and really unlock defenses as well. But it really is through his brain that I think that he's able to create the most advantages. But don't underestimate his physical game either. He's not the biggest guy in the world at 6'1" and 183, but he's incredibly mature in terms of resisting contact, establishing leverage, getting underneath opponents, and just being incredibly difficult to knock off the puck. And that's what made him over a 2-point-a-game scorer last season with the Saginaw Spirits, scoring 62 goals and 134 points in 65 games. Just absolutely obscene production there from Michael Misa. But I think with his elite details, inside-driven mentality, and strong contact skills, that he's a player that could certainly make the jump to the NHL sooner rather than later. Maybe he gets one more season in the O before getting a call up to the San Jose Sharks. But honestly, I think either way, he's going to be a player who, by the end of this season will be playing NHL minutes and will be impressing both Sharks fans and hockey fans alike with his maturity and his details and his ability to get involved as a young player. So he is the number one prospect in the pool, and it's going to be exciting to watch him compete with Macklin Celebrini down the stretch to see which of the two ends up as the number one guy in San Jose. Moving on at number 2, we're sticking in the OHL with a very physically mature player with Sam Dickinson, a big, heavy 6'3", 209 left shot defenseman who just dominated with the London Knights last season, scoring 1.65 points a game. That's 91 points in 55 games from the blue line, including 29 goals. He has a howitzer of a shot. He's an elite level skater. He already looks like a 25-year-old NHL player with the way that he's built and the way that he's able to play inside contact. There's definitely still some refinement to make in terms of the decision-making, of when to close his gaps, the decision-making on puck in the breakout of which pass to hit. But mechanically, he's just so gifted. And that combination of size, skill, mobility is something that I think will make him a top liner at the end of the day in the NHL. And I'm very excited to see who ends up being his pairing mate at the NHL level once he does make the jump. But I would love to see him crack the lineup out of camp this season. He's certainly outgrown the junior hockey level. So very, very hopeful to see him in the NHL this campaign. And top pairing upside, very impressive prospect there, and very tight with number 3 in terms of deciding which one would kind of come out ahead. But Yaroslav Askarov ended up drawing the shorter stick between the two, ending up at number 3. But he's another player that just has not just like top of the lineup upside, but game-breaking potential there in San Jose. The Russian netminder acquired from the Nashville Predators just a year ago, and he put up a really strong campaign in the AHL with the Barracuda. Not the strongest Barracuda lineup, and he still put up a .923 save percentage. He's incredibly athletic. He's explosive in his post-to-post transitions. He's incredibly quick, very precise, and the puck tracking needs a little bit more work probably before jumping full-time to the NHL level, but he's really, really taken strides in that area as well since being drafted. So a player who's shown big progression, who has the game-breaking skill, and maybe the starting netminder by year's end in San Jose. At number 4, we've got Quentin Musty, a high-skill left winger who has a big frame at 6'2" and 201 pounds, but it's all in the on-puck and the deftness of skill that he's able to create his advantages. He's not the most physically involved, high-motor, intense player in the world, but he is an incredibly dynamic player with the puck on his stick. He's got a very hard shot. He's an incredibly creative playmaker, but it's the hands that really break games open the most. He is a player that can draw in opponents, beat players one-on-one, beat players one-on-two, especially at the junior level. And he even showed in a little 3-game stint in the AHL last season with the Barracuda that he can totally make it work at that level. He didn't score any points in those 3 games, but I watched 2 of them and thought that he was actually really impressive overall. In his adaptation to the pace, especially of professional hockey. He's just such a creative dual threat scorer that I see him as a future top 6 piece with the Sharks. Might take him another 2 or 3 years to get there, to establish himself at that level, but especially when paired with a refined 2-way center, of which, of course, the Sharks have 2 now at the top end of the lineup with Misa and Celebrini. I think you have a really good recipe for success in terms of offensive creation. Last but not least, for this first segment, we have a winger that might make the jump even sooner than Quentin Musty because he is a bit more of a polished player at this stage in his development. And that's Igor Chernyshov, who was playing with Misa last season in the OHL with the Saginaw Spirit, and he scored at a ridiculous pace, 2.39 points a game, 19 goals, and 36 assists for 55 points in just 23 regular season appearances. That is pure domination. And it was alongside Misa that he really played his best hockey. He's incredibly physically engaged at 6'3", 205 pounds. He bulldozes his way to the middle of the ice, but he's also very creative in possession, whether through his puck handling, his anticipation, his awareness of where his teammates and opponents are on the ice, and the playmaking ability to find teammates through tight seams. It's all there. And that layering, the blending of physicality and in-tight playmaking around the low slot, I think he's really, really built to be a second line power forward playmaker in the NHL. And it might not even take him all that long to get to that level. Give it a year and a half, and I think he'll be a stalwart in the Sharks lineup. And he could be a perfect long-term partner for either of Misa and Celebrini to offer a bit more of that physical edge, the violence, but still being able to keep up mentally with that creativity and the pace while offering tools that really add depth and layers to that line that even the elite centers do not fully provide. So that's a top 5 in San Jose. It is chock full of talent and game-breaking skills. So that's where really the difference-making facet comes in this pool and why they've cemented themselves as the top prospect pool in the NHL this offseason. But in the next one, we're going to explore a little bit more of the depth in this pool as we break down players ranked 6 through 14. But first, a quick message from our sponsors here at Locked On NHL Prospects. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on either your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is made for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting, and you can link all your bank accounts in minutes so you see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever having to touch a spreadsheet. Don't let the financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKDOWNNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year with Monarch Money with code LOCKEDONNHL. All right, let's keep this episode rolling here in the second segment, breaking down the San Jose Sharks prospect pool. And we're going to go here at number 6 with an intelligent playmaking forward, can play at center or on the wing. And he's been having some really good development in the NCAA and even got into 11 NHL games at the tail end of last season after signing his entry-level deal. That's Cameron Lund, who was the offensive driver at Northeastern last year, scoring 18 goals and 40 points in 37 games. And he's a player that, even though he's not the paciest or most engaged in the world, at least in the past, has really been able to make up ground on his deficiencies when he was drafted between then and now. And he just keeps his feet moving nowadays. He gets to the middle of the ice a lot more frequently, but it really is in his ability to attack opponents on the back check, get underneath them, and immediately turn defense into offense that impressed me most. He could really use his teammates a bit more effectively in transition, but once he unlocks that, this could also be a bigger rush threat at the NHL level. So with Cam Lund, I think that you have a player that isn't all that far away to be a middle 6 contributor. You can kind of play up and down the lineup, but he has a good shot. He's a decent playmaker, but more than anything, he thinks the game at a sufficient level to elevate players that will find themselves in that middle 6 capacity in San Jose longer term. At number 7, we have a recently drafted netminder, Joshua Ravensbergen, who was an early second round pick here by a late first round pick, 30th overall by the San Jose Sharks in the most recent draft. And he's got a fantastic story. He was never drafted into the WHL, but he went to camp and won a spot out of camp with the Prince George Cougars and ended up being just dominant for them and a tremendous player in net, including internationally for Team Canada as well. There's just so much to like here. The tools are fantastic. He has a massive frame at 6'5" and 192 pounds. He tracks the puck well. He keeps really consistent depth in his net. And overall, I think he's a player that projects as a reliable starter at the NHL level. Not a top 15 netminder by any case, but definitely still a guy that could find himself as an ideal backup long-term to a player like Yaroslav Askarov, and to have that player in the system who still has the upside to be a true starter in the NHL, I think is just great work by the San Jose Sharks. At number 8, we have a dynamic offensive defenseman in Luca Cagnoni. He's 5'9" and 181 pounds. And as you can see by that frame, physicality is not the name of the game with him, but he's incredibly intelligent. The playmaking touch is really impressive. He's been dominant already at the AHL level with the Barracuda. He scored 16 goals and 52 points in 64 games last season. The question here really is the translatability of what he's doing to the NHL level. How will he fare if he's not handed big time power play minutes? Because those are going to be eaten up by guys like Sam Dickinson long term in San Jose. But he has that quarterback skill, the deception, the ability to shift sides of attack at the right moment. He has a really great sense of timing. And overall, I think that in terms of his mobility, he could probably still advance a little bit to compensate a bit more for his lack of physical qualities in terms of forcing players to the outside with his body. He really is a stick-only defender at this stage in his development, but the offensive tools are fantastic. He's a really, really exciting piece. It's just that the defensive profile is a little bit limited, but in terms of the offensive talent, this guy could certainly have finished a spot higher on this board as well. Then at number 9, we have Kasper Halttunen, a goal-scoring winger out of Finland, who's playing with the London Knights this previous season yet again, scoring 21 goals and 41 points in 38 games. He's got a howitzer shot. He's really physical at 6'4", 205 pounds. He's got that power forward frame, and I think that doubling down on a power forward goal-scoring game is his most linear path to establishing himself as a night in, night out NHLer. And if he really hits his stride, he could be a third line scorer down the depth chart for the San Jose Sharks down the line. But I still would like to see a little bit more progression in terms of the play connecting ability, the passing, and the skating a little bit as well. So the decision-making under pressure, he's often defaulting to shooting rather than passing, and the precision of his passing implications could definitely use some work as well. But he's a really interesting piece to have down your depth chart, and a player that, in case of injury, could in the future move up the lineup and still contribute in terms of goal scoring when other guys go down to injury. At number 10, we have another recently drafted player with elite level skating in Haoxi Wang, the Chinese left shot defenseman who stands at 6'6", 209 pounds. He's a really big customer, but it's that mobility that just drives everything with this player. He's incredibly raw as currently constructed. He needs a ton of work to become an NHL player, but the raw tools were among the very best still available in the second round of the 2025 class, and that's why the Sharks took the big swing on him. He's got a big physical runway. He's got the frame, obviously, but also some decent stick details and overall the defensive skating to just smother chances off the rush is really impressive. But you're going to want to see him gain a lot more consistency and polish in his gap management, the consistency with which he's able to hold off opponents, and also the consistency with which he's able to be on puck and create things. He struggled to do that in the OHL last season with the Oshawa Generals, only got 2 assists in 32 games. And I think that a lot of that also came down to the puck moving being limited to just flashes and a lot of rusty decision making, perhaps being there beyond the very bright flashes. So if he really hits, he has a shot at being a second pair guy with the San Jose Sharks, but perhaps more likely a bottom pair shutdown defenseman who uses his mobility to just smother chances night in, night out. But if he's able to elevate that on puck game and maybe to create a little bit as a playmaker as well from the blue line, you might see that number 4 defenseman upside materialize. At number 11, we have Philip Biestet, a left shot forward who can play at center, play on the wing, and he played with the San Jose Barracuda last season, scoring 31 points in 50 games. Really solid display there for the 2004 born player. And I think that he's a guy that just looked perfectly solid at the AHL level last campaign. He's a bit upright in his posture as a skater, which limits him a bit mechanically. And he doesn't have a single tool that I would project as like above average or a standout ability. And maybe defining that over the course of the next few seasons is going to help him to really cement a spot in the NHL lineup and keep him there, keep his grasp on that role. But I think adding a level of physicality would really help in terms of gaining the trust of coaches in the NHL. But yeah, he's an interesting enough player, but I'm still kind of waiting to see which tool elevates itself as the primary piece of his toolkit. At number 12, we have a player with some certain qualities, similar qualities in Cole McKinney, who was just drafted in the second round by the Sharks, a player I watched a bunch last season and just loved watching play. He's not the most gifted skater, the most gifted puck handler. There's a bit of choppiness in both areas, but he just constantly works hard. He's an incredibly hard worker. And when you combine that with a real elevation in his hockey sense and his passing ability over the course of the past season, I think that you see a player kind of forming in terms of how he might look in the NHL someday, of just being a true checking center who's able to elevate more skilled players on his wings, connect play well between them, offer the physical edge to insulate them a little bit, and also has the passing ability to find them in dangerous spaces. He and Jack Murtagh were really the most consistent pairing in terms of creating offense for the program last season. And with a little bit more on puck dare and improvements in the faceoff circle, I think he could really cement himself as an important piece with the University of Michigan this season. It's a great program. If they're able to elevate his skating a little bit as well, I think that he has a really good shot at establishing himself as a long-term bottom 6C in San Jose. Could really be a 3C, I think, in terms of how he plays the game and what the Sharks might be looking for in that role. At number 13, we have Leo Salin Valenius, mobile left shot defenseman. Doesn't really have the biggest frame with him at 6 feet, 183 pounds, and that physicality was exploited a bit last season, especially at the SHL level with the Vahwa Lakers. But I think he's also a guy that has shown the ability to quarterback power plays and to move the puck with real precision and determination. And I think that there is a level of smoothness in his game that is really, really interesting to see. I think a bit similar to Philip Biestet, I'm still kind of waiting on this player to show what the element is that he's going to bring that's going to keep him in an NHL lineup, that's going to keep him from being a tweener who's really good for the AHL or for the SHL, but just can't quite cement an NHL spot. Because again, I think that limitations in physicality as well as in composure under pressure might cap his upside a little bit. At number 14, we have Carson Wetch, a right shot forward who just brings a constant motor on the wing. And he's fast moving, he's hard hitting, he's a really good skater, and he brings that physical edge that could really be useful in a bottom six capacity down the line with the Sharks. I think that that power game is something that he's really built up with the Calgary Hitmen in recent seasons. And he plays low in the defensive zone. He supports his defense. I think these are all habits that will gain him the trust of coaches at the pro level. And he's got a decent shot as well, but he really does his goal scoring from within 6 feet of the blue paint. And he scored 33 goals in 68 games last season there with the Hitmen. Then at 15, to wrap up this segment, we have Joey Muldowney, a goal-scoring right winger who stands at 5'9" and 161 pounds. So certainly he can get physically out-muscled, but he was an absolute spark plug this season with the University of Connecticut in the NCAA. And he scored 29 goals and 47 points in 39 games. That was good for top 3 rank in terms of goal scoring in all of college last season, and almost all of it came in the new year. I believe 22 of his 29 goals came since January 1st. He had a ridiculous tear of scoring almost every single game, and his ability to outskate opponents, to beat them with his really strong shot. This is a combination of tools, I think, that could really, really translate well to the AHL level at least. And we're going to see how it continues in terms of the next couple years of development and see if he can make that jump to the NHL as well. But in terms of the skill on puck, the ability to make things happen, and the way that the puck just explodes off his stick in any matter of releases, he's a very interesting player. But that wraps up this second segment. In the next one, we're going to wrap up the show with players ranked 16 through 23. But first, a quick message from our sponsors here at Locked On NHL Prospects. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure that you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. player props, building a same game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. I personally love same game parlays to do right as I'm about to watch the actual games that I'm betting on, because I'm able to take swings on multiple different categories and really try to double down on my predictions. It's always a whole bunch of fun and ups the ante on the excitement level. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app right now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, let's wrap up the show here in the final segment, breaking down the top prospect pool in the entire NHL, the San Jose Sharks. At number 16 in our rankings, we have Reese Laubach, a center who was playing with Penn State University last season in college hockey, scoring 15 goals and 30 points in 35 games. He's another player that I think might still have to build an aspect in his game that can cement a role in the NHL. There's a couple of these guys in the system, and if one or two of them can build that standout element, I think that there are NHL roles waiting for them in the future. With Laubach, I think that the playmaking is really the one that has the best shot, especially as he will be playing on the same team as Gavin McKenna this season. He'll have his fair share of opportunities to flash his on-puck abilities. And I think that in terms of the effort level, the motor, the feistiness he has along the boards, he has a lot of these elements that kind of make up for his subpar skating. There's a bit of choppiness in his stride. He doesn't get from A to B the most efficiently or quickly all the time, but he definitely has the fallback game to play a middle six or a bottom six role in the future, potentially in the National Hockey League. At number 17, we have Nate Miskey, big right shot defenseman who stands at 6'4", 212 pounds, playing with the Victoria Royals in the WHL last season, and he just brings rampant physicality. But he also did provide a decent amount of offense last campaign with 10 goals and 47 points in 63 games. He's one of the CHL's absolute meanest player. He has a desire to hurt and bruise his opponents. He lands hard checks, he sneaks in the extra shot, and he throws opponents to the ice. He plays with some chippiness and some feistiness and gets underneath opponents' skin quite regularly. And if he's able to really bring that style to the NHL and translate the skating ability, especially to remain adaptable off the rush, that's currently his weakest part in his defensive toolkit, I think that he could be a great physically engaged bottom pair defenseman in the future for the Sharks. At number 18, we have Eric Polkamp, a right shot defenseman who had a fantastic campaign with Denver University last season, scoring 11 goals and 35 points in 44 games. He's got a wicked shot, and he creates a lot through it, whether through searching for tips and rebounds, deflections, and flybys through the high slot. This is a very adaptable player with the puck on his stick at the blue line in the offensive zone. Very effective at shooting tippable shots. And that's something I think that goes under the radar sometimes with blue liners in terms of the assets that they have and how projectable they become to the NHL level. He's going to have to improve his agility, though, in terms of defending the rush to really make it work at the NHL level. But if he does, I think that there's a spot waiting for him on a bottom pair, and he could also even take on a role on a second power play if need be. At number 19, a very fun forward who just brings constant physicality and intensity, Teddy Mutrin, who's playing with the Chicago Steel last season in the USHL. He keeps his feet moving constantly. He hits hard. He's a very effective checking forward. Usually played on the wing last year, but he can also play at center. And overall, I think it's his shot that is his most exciting offensive tool. He has a really heavy shot. He doesn't need much space or time to get it off either. And overall, I think he's a player that could just be one of the more entertaining bottom six checkers in the National Hockey League if he really hits his upside. At number 20, we have Brandon Svoboda, who scored 9 points in 33 games with Boston University last season. And he's a big boy, 6'3", 207 pounds. He was playing low down the lineup. Minutes were hard to come by, so don't blame the production too much. But at the World Junior Championships, he really showed his game for Team USA. He scored 3 goals and 6 points in just 7 games at the tournament, in terms of especially creating around the net front and popping out from the crease in order to receive the puck in the low slot. He has a lot of the assets, whether it be the physical frame, the range, the shot in tight, to maybe cement a number 4 center role down the line for the San Jose Sharks. Then at 21, we have Yegor Afanasiev, who coming in at also another 6'3" left shot forward, who's playing in the KHL this previous season with CSKA Moscow, and he scored 7 goals and 21 points in 53 games there in the KHL with a very good shot and deft playmaking skill as well. But it really is that physical game that makes him tick. I think that he definitely still has to improve the skating a little bit, and time is ticking as he is 24 years old now, and the NHL window is closing slightly, but he has the assets, in my opinion, to really make it work. And overall, he also played a really good season in the AHL with 27 goals a year prior. So he has that toolkit to put the puck in the net. I'd just love to see it happen down the lineup on a roll with the San Jose Sharks in the next 2 years, but we'll see if that ends up happening. Second to last, so the penultimate player here on the list is David Klee, a reliable centerman who played with the Muskegon Lumberjacks last season, captaining them to a Clark Cup championship. Wasn't the most dynamic player in the world. He's not all that creative with the puck on his stick, and the skating is definitely a limitation in terms of what he's able to do in possession. But he's very physically mature. He gets to the inside, really good leverage mechanics. He's able to really get underneath opponents and win body position better than most players in the USHL last season. And in terms of projection, he won't be the biggest scorer at the college level, but I think that if he's able to elevate his combination of awareness, processing speed, and skating, that you might see a 4th-line center for him down the line. Last but not least, we have Colton Roberts, another big right shot defenseman here in the system, 6'4", 201 pounds, playing with the Vancouver Giants last season in the WHL, scoring 36 points in 66 games. He's a really good mover. I think that his blend of mobility and physicality is his best asset, and he can use that quite effectively to angle players to the outside, keep play away from the middle lane, and really protect that slot effectively. He's off to Colorado College this season in the NCAA, so I'm excited to see how he adapts to that big jump in pace and physicality on college ice, but he's definitely going to have to build up a better breakout game and reliability in possession to really make it work in the NHL. But that wraps up this episode and this prospect pool for the San Jose Sharks. I would love to hear about any agreements or disagreements that you have with the ranking of these players, and overall, who you're most excited to see in the NHL among the San Jose prospect pool, because there's just so much talent to choose from here. So I would absolutely love to hear. On tomorrow's show, we'll be breaking down yet another big prospect pool with big upside as we look at the New York Islanders. And yeah, that wraps things up here for us today. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I'm your host, Sebastian High, and I'll catch you tuning in again very, very soon.